Today we're joined on the phone by musician Langhorne Slim. He's got a show coming up at the Cedar Cultural Center in Minneapolis on April 24th. Langhorne Slim, how you doing today?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, man.
Well, we know you got a show coming up here in Minneapolis at the Cedar Cultural Center on the 24th. For the listeners out there, maybe if they've never seen a show of yours before, can you tell them a little bit about it? What can we expect?
Yeah, I'm doing a solo tour, which is a little unusual. I've had a band and toured most of my life so far with configuration or two or three of bands, and on this last record, I wanted to do a solo tour and then get back with the band. So it'll just be me with the guitar. I felt very compelled. I think with the state of our country and the world that we're finding ourselves in, there was something that was that seemed sort of profoundly powerful and intriguing to me to get up on a stage and try to feel that connection with a group of people in a way that I've never, not that I haven't felt that connection before, but that it's never felt as important to me to feel that connection before, or maybe to just forget about some of the nonsense that's getting tossed at us all the time for an hour or two, or maybe discuss energetically or through the spirit of music how to elevate the world and the situations that we're finding ourselves in.
Excellent. Well, have you played much in Minnesota before? Have you come through here in the past at all?
I've been through, yeah. I mean, I've been on tour for, not consecutively, but I've been touring for the last 15 or 20 years, so I've certainly been through there. I've never had the pleasure of playing at the Cedar Arts Center, so I've heard wonderful things. And just doing a solo tour around the country has put, I'm used to playing rock and roll clubs and stuff like that, so doing it this way has given me a chance to play some different sort of rooms and a little bit folkier kind of vibe, which I've been enjoying.
Well, we know you just had an album out not too long ago, the Lost at Last album. It really seems like you've been building up a lot of momentum over the years. I know you mentioned you've been on the road for about 15, 20 years. And a lot of people, I know I've seen you on Conan O'Brien and a lot of other places as of late.
Yeah, man, I just keep my head down and try to keep my heart open and make the best music that I possibly can and continue to try to challenge myself to be better at all sides of it, at writing, at recording, at putting on concerts. And there was never a plan B. There was never anything else that I felt drawn to do. So this is what I've done my whole life, and this is what I imagine I'll be doing for the rest of my life. And it's just how to keep digging deep and keeping it feeling inspired and fresh, and hopefully finding that connection. I mean, you make music for yourself out of your own experiences, but I think if you are being real with yourself and as true with yourself as you can, it's something that others out there can connect to, because we are all sharing one human experience, and it is a beautiful and terrifying world, and that's something that we could all relate to, despite our teams that we root for or politicians that we vote for. And that's something that's really important to me right now, is to find, as opposed to alienating any side, to find some more of the common denominators that we share and embrace those things.
Definitely. Again, Langhorne Slim with us, and he's got a show coming up in Minneapolis at the Cedar Cultural Center on April 24th. And, you mentioned, being at it for a long time, and I kind of wanted to get your sense as to, your writing process. Does the approach change over the years? I know you're still relatively young, but you've been doing it a long time.
I'm relatively young if I live a long time. I'm very old if I pass away during this conversation. So we'll see. I hope I live a long time. I've never really had a writing approach, so to speak. I think of it as myself and others who are creative and artistic beings as sort of vessels who are here to sort of channel something that moves through you. And I don't have the words for what that is, but it's to me, it lives in more of like a spiritual, spirity realm, and just to be awake for when the melodies hit me, when the lyrics come, and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's like it's almost sprinkled upon you, and you've done absolutely nothing, and you've got a song. And other times, it takes weeks, months, or years to finish a song. So yeah, I've never had a deliberate approach. Things changed for me about 4 or 5 years ago. I leaned heavily on copious bottles of wine and other things for my writing, and I quit all of that stuff. And so that, I wouldn't say changed my approach, but I think changed my lens on life, and I'm sure my creative output. But I wouldn't be able to put it into words exactly how, other than it's with a new set of eyes, I suppose.
Sure. Well, with that being said, who are some of your influences, musically, maybe some of the people you liked growing up, or, some of the stuff that you always go back to?
Oh, gosh, I could go on and on and on and on. Growing up on the radio, I'm from outside of Philadelphia. I would listen to the classic rock station, and so I love the Kinks and, of course, the Beatles and David Bowie. Ziggy Stardust is probably my first favorite record. Then got into punk rock. Watching Smells Like Teen Spirit on MTV for the first time changed my life. First song I ever learned on the guitar was Polly by Nirvana. For me, it tends to be more of the roots of all of the various genres of music, where I find it's at its rawest and most inspired, whether it be blues music, folk music, soul music, rock and roll music, hip hop music. I'm just a music lover, so I love anything that penetrates my soul.
Well, then, one of my all-time favorite groups, the band Weaned. I know you grew up, you mentioned, in Pennsylvania there, right around New Hope. I got to ask, did you ever cross paths with those guys at all?
No, I never did. I went to high school in their hometown, but they were a little bit before me, and I never did cross paths, but I'm also a fan. Maybe our paths will cross in the future at some point.
Awesome. Well, again, I know you got the show coming up here in Minneapolis. Anything else maybe in the works, or anything else coming up after the tour?
To continue touring, and this record is called Lost at Last Volume 1, which would imply to some that there might be a Lost at Last Volume 2, and that would be a fair assumption if one were to assume. And so I'll be touring a lot. I go to Europe all of May, fortunate enough to go around there for the month, and then we'll do some festivals and stuff, and then I think this summer I'll start finalizing the second record, which will hopefully come out sooner than later.
Excellent. Well, again, I look forward to seeing you here at the Cedar, and thanks a lot for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
It's truly my pleasure. I look forward to seeing you and coming to town, so thanks for having me.
All right, you bet. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, man. Take care.
And again, that was musician Langhorne Slim. You could see him at the Cedar Cultural Center in Minneapolis coming up on April 24th. Also, his latest album, Lost at Last Volume 1, is available now.